There's nothing more painful than realizing you never really knew the person closest to you.
My wife Emily had more secrets than our bank's online security system. Too bad I was the only one without the access codes. I'm Will Granger, 41 years old, and I fix computer networks for a living. Not the most exciting job in Dallas, but it pays for our suburban house and my son's private school. What it doesn't prepare you for is discovering your perfect life is built on quicksand. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Emily sat at our granite kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone with that distant look she'd perfected over the past 6 months. Her blonde hair caught the morning light streaming through our bay windows, and she looked every inch the successful wellness consultant she claimed to be. "Dad, can I use the iPad for my science project?" Max asked, bouncing into the kitchen with his backpack already slung over his shoulders. My 7-year-old son had inherited Emily's looks and my obsession with technology. "Sure, buddy. It's on the counter," I said, pouring coffee into my travel mug. Emily's head snapped up. "No, wait!" But Max had already grabbed the silver tablet and stuffed it into his backpack. Emily's face went pale, then flushed red. "Actually, honey, I need that for work today," she said, her voice tight. "I'll bring it back after school, Mom, promise." Emily looked like she wanted to chase after him, but Max was already out the door, catching his ride with the neighbor kids. She stared after him with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear, panic. "Everything okay?" I asked. She forced a smile. "Of course. Just some client files I need to review." I'd been married to Emily for 9 years, and lately, nothing felt right. The late-night phone calls she took in the garage, the way she'd started working weekends at her wellness center, the fact that Carter Wells, the owner of the gym downtown, always seemed to park his black BMW exactly 2 blocks from our house on the nights Emily worked late. Carter was everything I wasn't, 6'3", former NFL linebacker turned fitness entrepreneur. The kind of guy who wore tank tops to grocery stores and called everyone bro, unironically. Emily claimed they were just business associates, collaborating on some corporate wellness program. Right, and I was secretly Batman. My phone buzzed with a text from Tony Reeves, my old college roommate who'd become a private investigator after leaving the Dallas PD. "Coffee later? Got some interesting info about that gym owner you asked about." I'd hired Tony 3 weeks ago when my suspicions about Emily reached the breaking point. Call it paranoia or call it intuition, but 15 years in IT security teaches you to trust your instincts about anomalies in the system. At work, I couldn't concentrate. Every time my phone rang, I expected it to be the school calling about Max forgetting his lunch or needing pickup for a dentist appointment. Normal, dad stuff. Instead, at 2:47 p.m., my phone exploded with the call that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. "Mr. Granger, this is Principal Martinez at Riverside Elementary. You need to come to the school immediately. The police are here, and they need to speak with you about your son." My blood turned to ice water. "Is Max hurt? What happened?" "He's physically fine, but there's been an incident involving some disturbing content on an electronic device. Please come now." I broke every speed limit getting to the school. Police cars filled the parking lot, their red and blue lights painting the afternoon in emergency colors. Inside, I found Max sitting in the principal's office, his small frame dwarfed by the adult chaos surrounding him. Detective Sarah Riley, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, introduced herself and got straight to business. "Mr. Granger, your son was showing classmates a science app on this tablet when some inappropriate videos started playing automatically. We need you to look at this content and explain how it got on a device accessible to your child." She handed me Max's backpack, which contained Emily's iPad. My hands shook as I powered it on, the screen filled with a video that made my stomach lurch violently. Emily, my wife, in our house, in Max's bedroom, performing some kind of ritual with what appeared to be animal remains. The timestamp showed it was recorded last Thursday night, when she'd claimed to be at a client dinner. There were more videos, dozens of them. Emily with other people I didn't recognize, engaged in activities that looked like some twisted combination of occult practices and related to Zek's deviancy. All filmed in various rooms of our house, our home, where my son lived and played and slept. "I've never seen any of this before," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Detective Riley studied my face carefully. "Mr. Granger, we're going to need you to come to the station for questioning. Child Protective Services is also going to want to speak with you and your son." The next 4 hours were a blur of interrogation rooms, social workers, and questions I couldn't answer. How long had this been going on? Did I know about my wife's activities? Had I ever participated? By the time they released me, satisfied that I was as shocked and horrified as any normal husband would be, the sun was setting. Max clung to my hand as we walked to the car, his usual chatter replaced by confused silence. Dad, why were those people asking about Mom's videos? How do you explain to a 7-year-old that his mother is apparently involved in activities that would make horror movie directors uncomfortable? Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices, buddy. The important thing is that you're safe, and I'm going to make sure you stay safe. When we got home, Emily's car was gone. So were most of her clothes and personal items. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Will, I can explain everything. This isn't what it looks like. I'm staying at Gina's until this blows over. Please don't let them poison Max against me. Poison Max against her? The woman had been performing ritualistic activities in his bedroom. My phone rang. Tony. Will, you're not going to believe what I found out about your wife's wellness business. We need to talk tonight. I looked around our house, the house where I'd thought we were building a normal, happy family, and realized I didn't know the woman I'd been married to at all. But I was about to find out exactly who Emily Granger really was. And then I was going to make sure she paid for every single lie. Tony arrived at my house an hour after Max fell asleep, carrying a thick manila folder and wearing the grim expression he'd perfected during his cop years. Show me the videos first, he said, settling into my living room chair. I handed him Emily's iPad, warning him about the content. Tony had seen plenty of disturbing things during his police career, but even he winced as he scrolled through Emily's collection. Jesus Christ, Will, how long has this been going on? According to the timestamps, at least 6 months, maybe longer. I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey. What did you find out about her business? Tony opened his folder. Emily's wellness consulting is a front. The business address leads to a strip mall office that's been empty for 2 years. But here's where it gets interesting. Carter Wells isn't just her business partner. He pulled out surveillance photos showing Emily and Carter entering and leaving various hotels around Dallas. They've been meeting at the Marriott downtown every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 months. But that's not the weird part. Look at this. The next photo showed Emily, Carter, and 3 other people I didn't recognize entering a warehouse in Deep Ellum. That building is owned by something called the Meridian Society. Ever heard of it? I shook my head. Neither had I until I started digging. It's registered as a spiritual wellness organization, but my sources say it's basically a Zex club for rich weirdos who like to play dress-up and perform fake rituals. The kind of place where suburban housewives go to feel edgy and dangerous. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Will, please call me. I can explain everything. The videos aren't what they seem. I showed Tony the message. He snorted. Yeah, I'm sure there's a perfectly innocent explanation for why your wife was sacrificing chickens in your kid's bedroom. What do I do now? Document everything, change the locks, move all your assets into accounts she can't access, and prepare for war because when this hits the neighborhood gossip network, it's going to get ugly fast. He was right. By Wednesday morning, our neighbor Mrs. Carmichael had somehow learned about the police visit to Max's school. She cornered me at the mailbox with barely contained excitement. Will, dear, is it true that Emily was arrested for devil worship? She wasn't arrested, Mrs. Carmichael, just questioned. But I heard there were videos. Awful videos. Poor little Max must be traumatized. I escaped into my house, but the damage was spreading. My phone started ringing with calls from other parents, neighbors, and Emily's former clients. Word travels fast in suburban Dallas, especially when it involves Zex, rituals, and police investigations. Thursday afternoon, Carter Wells showed up at my front door with another man I didn't recognize. Tall, heavily tattooed, with the kind of face that suggested he settled disagreements with his fists. We need to talk, Carter said, pushing past me into my foyer. Actually, we don't. Get out of my house. This is Jake Morrison, Carter continued, ignoring my request. He helps me with problem solving. We're here to collect Emily's things. Emily already took what she wanted. Everything else stays here until the lawyers sort it out. Carter stepped closer, using his size to intimidate me. Look, computer boy, you don't understand what you're messing with. Emily made some mistakes, but she's under our protection now. You keep running your mouth to the cops, and things might get complicated for you. I'd spent my entire adult life being underestimated by guys like Carter. Big, loud, physically imposing men who assumed that anyone who worked with computers was automatically weak and submissive. They were about to learn otherwise. You know what, Carter? You're right. I am just a computer guy. But computer guys know things like how to access traffic cameras and security footage and cell phone records. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken from our neighbor's security system, Carter's BMW parked on our street at 2:30 a.m. 3 weeks ago. Interesting timestamp, don't you think? That was the night Emily told me she was visiting her sick aunt in Fort Worth. But here's your car, 2 blocks from our house. Want to explain that to your wife, Lisa? Because I have her Facebook contact right here. Carter's face flushed red. You little... I also have video of you and Emily entering the Meridian Society building, and hotel receipts, and text messages. Should I keep going? Jake stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. Maybe we should teach this guy some manners. I smiled and pressed a button on my phone. Too late. I just sent all of that information to my lawyer, my PI friend Tony, and a delayed email that goes to Channel 8 News if I don't cancel it in the next hour. It was a bluff, but a convincing one. Carter grabbed Jake's arm. We're leaving. But this isn't over. Actually, it is. And Carter, next time you want to threaten someone, make sure they don't know how to make your life disappear with a few keystrokes. After they left, I called Tony. They came to my house, Carter and some muscle named Jake Morrison. Jake Morrison? Oh, Will. You hit the jackpot. That guy has warrants in 3 counties. I'll make some calls. There's something else. Carter mentioned that Emily is under their protection now. What does that mean? It means your wife is in deeper than we thought, and it means they're going to escalate this. Tony was right. Friday morning, I woke up to find my car's tires slashed and "Keep Your Mouth Shut" spray painted across my garage door. But I was done being intimidated. I spent the weekend installing a comprehensive security system around my house, cameras, motion sensors, and audio recording devices in every room. If Carter and his friends wanted to play games, I'd make sure every move they made was documented. Sunday evening, Emily called. Will, please, can we meet somewhere and talk? I know how this looks, but you don't understand the whole situation. The whole situation. Emily, you were performing ritual sacrifices in our son's bedroom. What part of that am I misunderstanding? It's not what you think. The Meridian Society is about spiritual exploration. You were just cheating on me with a meathead gym owner while filming occult adult content in the room where our child sleeps. Did I get that right? Silence. I want a divorce, Emily. I want full custody of Max. And I want you to stay away from both of us. You can't do this. I'm his mother. You're a stranger who happened to give birth to him. The Emily I married wouldn't have done any of this. Monday morning brought a new surprise. Detective Riley called to inform me that Emily had been taken to Presbyterian Hospital for a psychological evaluation after being found wandering through downtown Dallas at 3 a.m., covered in what appeared to be animal red liquid, and claiming she was being followed by demons. Is she going to be charged with anything? I asked. That depends on what the psychiatrists determine. Animal cruelty, maybe. Endangering a child. But if she's genuinely having a mental health crisis, the DA might recommend treatment instead of prosecution. Great. So Emily might avoid consequences for traumatizing our son because she'd convinced someone she was crazy instead of just evil. But I was far from finished with my wife and her friends. I had evidence, I had motivation, and I had absolutely nothing left to lose. Time to show Emily and Carter what happened when you messed with a computer guy who knew how to fight back. Tony met me at a diner near downtown Tuesday morning, carrying another folder that had grown substantially thicker. Your wife's psychological evaluation bought us some time, he said, sliding photos across the table. While she's been in the hospital, I've been digging deeper into the Meridian Society. Will, this thing is bigger than we thought. The photos showed the warehouse building from multiple angles, with timestamps indicating regular activity during evening hours, cars arriving and leaving, people in expensive clothing entering through a side door. I ran the license plates, 3 city council members, a judge, 2 prominent businessmen, and the wife of a state senator. Your Emily wasn't just playing dress-up with suburban housewives. She was running blackmail operations on some very powerful people. My coffee turned cold as I studied the evidence. Blackmail? Think about it, rich, married politicians engaging in weird sex rituals? That's career-ending material. Emily and Carter were filming everything, just like they did at your house. Tony pulled out a thick stack of financial records. I also traced their money. The Meridian Society has been making regular payments to offshore accounts controlled by Emily and Carter. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So Emily's been extorting money from these people? That's my theory. And here's the scary part. Some of these sufferers have been making payments for over 2 years. This operation predates your marriage problems by a long time. I thought about Emily's expensive clothes, her frequent spa trips, the way she always seemed to have cash for things we couldn't afford on our combined salaries. I'd assumed she was just good at budgeting. There's more, Tony continued. I set up surveillance on Carter's gym. He and Jake have been meeting with some very unsavory characters. Illegal substance dealers, loan sharks, the kind of people who handle problems with violence instead of lawyers. What kind of problems? The kind that happen when blackmail sufferers get tired of paying and decide to fight back. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or your son pays the price. I showed it to Tony, who immediately pulled out his own phone. I'm calling this in to Detective Riley. Threatening a child crosses every line. Wait, if we involve the police now, Emily might get released from the hospital, and these people obviously have connections to judges and politicians. What if the system protects them? Tony studied my face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to fight fire with fire. You said Emily and Carter have been filming their blackmail operations. Yeah, but accessing that evidence would require breaking into their warehouse. I know. Will, that's illegal. If I get caught, I go to jail. If I don't do something, they might hurt Max. Which risk am I supposed to take? Tony was quiet for a long moment. If you're determined to do this, you're not going alone, and we do it smart. We spent the rest of the day planning. Tony's police contacts provided building layouts and security information. My IT background helped us identify the warehouse's alarm systems and camera networks. Wednesday night, we parked 3 blocks from the Meridian Society building and approached through the industrial area behind it. Tony had insisted we wear dark clothing and gloves, like professionals. Remember, we're looking for computer equipment, filing cabinets, anything that might contain records or video files, he whispered as we reached the building's rear entrance. The lock was surprisingly easy to bypass. Apparently, the Meridian Society relied more on discretion than security. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into something that looked like a movie set, designed by someone with very disturbing fantasies. Multiple rooms sectioned off with curtains and decorative screens, cameras mounted in every corner, elaborate furniture that seemed designed for activities I didn't want to think about. But in the back office, we hit the jackpot. 3 computers, multiple external hard drives, and filing cabinets full of documents. While Tony photographed financial records, I connected a portable drive to their main computer and began copying files. Will, you need to see this. Tony held up a folder labeled Insurance Policies. Inside were photographs, video screenshots, and detailed dossiers on dozens of people, politicians, business leaders, even some local celebrities. Each file contained compromising images and a payment schedule. They weren't just blackmailing their sufferers, I realized. They were building an empire, and your wife was the brains behind it. Look at this. He showed me a handwritten ledger in Emily's distinctive script, detailing payments, scheduling, and what appeared to be plans for expanding their operation to other cities. My phone vibrated with an incoming call. Emily. Don't answer it, Tony warned, but I was curious. Hello, Emily. Will, where are you? I'm being released from the hospital tomorrow, and we need to talk. I'm at home, with Max, where you're not welcome anymore. This is ridiculous. I made some mistakes, but I'm still his mother. I have rights. Actually, you don't. I filed for emergency custody this afternoon. The hearing is Friday morning. Silence. Then, you coward. You have no idea what you're getting into. Enlighten me. There are people involved in this who don't like being crossed. People with the power to make your life very difficult. You mean your blackmail sufferers? Yeah, I figured that out. Another pause. How did you... I'm not as stupid as you thought, Emily. I know about the Meridian Society. I know about the money. I know about everything. Will, listen to me carefully. Drop the custody case. Stop investigating. Take Max and disappear for a while. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me from who? From people who have already decided you're a problem that needs to be solved. The line went dead. Tony looked at me grimly. We need to get out of here. Now. We finished copying files and photographing documents, then carefully restored everything to its original positions. As we prepared to leave, I heard cars pulling into the parking lot. Back exit, Tony whispered. We slipped out through the rear door just as the front entrance opened. Through a window, I saw Carter, Jake, and 3 other men entering the building. Too close, Tony muttered, as we made it back to his car. But we had what we needed. Evidence of a blackmail operation involving some of the most powerful people in Dallas. Financial records showing hundreds of thousands in illegal payments. And video files that would destroy careers and marriages across the city. The question was, how do you fight people who have judges and politicians in their pocket? The answer came to me as we drove home. You don't fight them through the system. You make their secrets public and let their sufferers destroy them for you. Time to turn Emily and Carter's blackmail operation against itself. Thursday morning, I woke up to find Emily sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee like she still lived there. How did you get in? I still have keys, Will. We need to talk. We have nothing to discuss. Get out of my house. Actually, we have everything to discuss. I know you broke into the warehouse last night. My blood chilled, but I kept my expression neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. The security cameras caught you and Tony sneaking around the building. Carter wants to have you arrested for breaking and entering. Then why hasn't he called the police? Emily smiled coldly. Because that would require explaining what you were trying to steal, and Carter's not ready for that conversation yet. She stood up and moved closer to me. Will, I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices. But you have to understand, I got involved with some very dangerous people, and now I can't get out. You mean you got involved with a blackmail scheme and now you're afraid your sufferers are going to fight back? It's not that simple. The Meridian Society isn't just about money. These people have connections everywhere. Police, courts, media. If you keep pushing this, they'll destroy you. They can try. They'll hurt Max. I grabbed Emily's arm, probably harder than I should have. If anyone touches my son, I will burn their entire world down. Do you understand me? Will, please. I'm trying to save you. Take Max and leave Dallas. Go visit your brother in Colorado for a few weeks. Let this blow over. Or what? Or Carter and his friends will make sure you disappear permanently. After Emily left, I called Tony and Detective Riley for an emergency meeting. We gathered at the police station where I laid out everything we'd discovered. This is a major criminal conspiracy, Detective Riley said after reviewing our evidence. But prosecuting it is going to be complicated. Half the potential defendants are connected to people who could shut down this investigation with a phone call. So what do? We build an airtight case and hope the DA has the courage to pursue it. But that could take months. I don't have months. They're threatening my son. Tony leaned forward. There might be another way. What if we turn their own sufferers against them? How? Think about it. These politicians and business leaders have been paying blackmail for years. They hate Emily and Carter more than anyone. If we could anonymously provide them with evidence of the whole operation, financial records, other sufferers' identities, proof that they're not alone, some of them might decide to fight back. Detective Riley shook her head. That's vigilante justice. I can't officially endorse that approach. But you can't officially stop it either, Tony pointed out. Friday morning's custody hearing was a nightmare. Emily had hired an expensive lawyer who argued that she was the sufferer of a mental health crisis and deserved sympathy, not punishment. Your Honor, her attorney said, my client has been receiving treatment for severe depression and anxiety. The activities depicted in these videos were the result of psychological manipulation by individuals who took advantage of her vulnerable state. My lawyer countered with the evidence of Emily's leadership role in the blackmail operation, but the judge seemed reluctant to completely terminate Emily's parental rights, based on activities that hadn't yet resulted in criminal charges. I'm granting temporary full custody to Mr. Granger, Judge Martinez ruled. Mrs. Granger will be allowed supervised visitation once per week, pending the outcome of any criminal proceedings. It wasn't the complete victory I'd hoped for, but it was enough to keep Max safe for now. That afternoon, I began implementing Tony's plan. Using the financial records we'd copied, I identified 12 sufferers of Emily and Carter's blackmail scheme. Then I created anonymous email accounts and began sending each sufferer a comprehensive package of evidence. Not just proof of their own compromise, but evidence of the entire operation. Names of other sufferers. Financial records showing how much money Emily and Carter had extorted. And most importantly, proof that their blackmail materials were stored in multiple locations. The message was simple. You're not alone. They've been doing this to dozens of people. Here's everything you need to fight back. By Sunday, the plan was working better than I'd hoped. City Councilman Robert Hayes held a press conference announcing his resignation, claiming he was the sufferer of an extortion scheme, but providing no details. State Senator Patricia Molina's husband filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and criminal activity. Judge William Foster recused himself from all pending cases and checked into a rehabilitation facility. The Dallas Morning News ran a front-page story about a mysterious blackmail operation targeting local politicians, though they didn't have enough details to name specific perpetrators yet. Carter called me Sunday evening, his voice shaking with rage. "You destroyed everything, you little mess. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've given your sufferers the information they needed to stop being sufferers. How's that feel? You think this is over? You think you've won? I think you and Emily are finished. Your blackmail sufferers are going public, which means the police can't ignore this anymore. Your money is going to get frozen. Your warehouse is going to get raided. And you're going to prison. Not before I make you pay for this. Try it. I've got evidence of this conversation being recorded, and it's automatically uploading to 3 different cloud servers. You so much as look at me wrong, and it goes straight to the police." Carter hung up, but I knew this was far from over. Monday brought confirmation that my strategy was working. Detective Riley called to inform me that the DA's office had opened a formal investigation into the Meridian Society based on complaints from multiple sufferers who had come forward. "We're getting search warrants for the warehouse, Carter's gym, and Emily's temporary residence," she said. "This is moving fast now." But Emily wasn't going down without a fight. Tuesday afternoon, she showed up at Max's school during recess, trying to convince him to leave with her. "Mommy needs you to come with her right now," she told him through the playground fence. Fortunately, the school had been alerted to the custody situation, security guards intervened, and Emily was escorted off the property. But the incident terrified Max and infuriated me. I called Emily immediately. "Stay away from my son. He's my son too, Will, and when this is all over, I'm going to get him back. When this is all over, you're going to be in prison. We'll see about that." Wednesday morning, I woke up to find my house surrounded by police cars. Detective Riley was standing on my front porch with a search warrant. "Will, I'm sorry about this, but we have to search your house. Emily filed a complaint claiming you stole evidence from the Meridian Society warehouse and are using it to bother innocent people." "Innocent people?" "She's talking about her blackmail sufferers." "I know, but we have to follow procedure." The search took 4 hours, during which they confiscated my computers, phones, and the evidence Tony and I had gathered. Max watched the whole thing with wide, frightened eyes. "Dad, are you going to jail?" "No, buddy. The police are just making sure we followed all the rules." But privately, I was worried. If Emily and Carter had managed to convince someone that I was the criminal in this situation, they might have more influence than I'd realized. That afternoon, Tony called with disturbing news. "Will, 3 of the blackmail sufferers you contacted have recanted their statements. They're now claiming they were never actually being blackmailed, and that you fabricated evidence against Emily and Carter." "How is that possible?" "Money talks. Or threats. Probably both." "So what happens now?" "Now we find out if the remaining evidence is strong enough to prosecute, and we hope Emily and Carter don't have enough influence to make this whole thing disappear." Thursday evening, as I was putting Max to bed, he asked me a question that broke my heart. "Dad, why did Mom become a bad person?" I sat on his bed trying to find words that would make sense to a 7-year-old. "Sometimes people make choices that change who they are, buddy. Your mom made some very bad choices, but that doesn't mean she stopped loving you. Do you think she'll ever be good again?" I looked at my son's hopeful face and realized that no matter how this ended, he was going to carry these scars for the rest of his life. "I don't know, Max, but I promise you'll always be safe with me." As I turned off his bedroom light, I made a decision. The legal system might fail us. The police might be corrupted by Emily and Carter's political connections. The evidence might get suppressed or dismissed. But I wasn't going to let them win. It was time to stop playing defense and start playing offense. Time to show Emily and Carter what happened when you threatened a father's child. Friday morning brought the news I'd been dreading. Detective Riley called to inform me that the DA's office was dropping the investigation into the Meridian Society due to insufficient evidence and credibility issues with key witnesses. What does that mean exactly? It means Emily and Carter's lawyer convinced the DA that you fabricated evidence and coerced witnesses into making false statements. Without the testimony from the blackmail sufferers, we don't have enough to prosecute. So they're just going to walk away from this? Unless new evidence surfaces, yes. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. The legal system had failed. The police had been outmaneuvered. Emily and Carter were going to escape consequences for everything they'd done. But I wasn't finished with them yet. Tony arrived an hour later with a grim expression and another folder of documents. I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want first? Bad news. Carter's been bragging to his gym buddies that he's going to teach you a lesson once the heat dies down. My source says he's planning something for this weekend. And the good news? I've found Emily's insurance policy. Tony opened the folder to reveal photographs of a storage unit in Garland, along with rental agreements and access codes. Emily's been keeping backup copies of everything at this location. Financial records, video files, correspondence with sufferers, it's all there, and unlike the warehouse, this place doesn't have security cameras or alarm systems. How did you find it? I followed Emily yesterday when she left the hospital. She spent 2 hours at the storage facility, moving boxes and organizing files. I think she's preparing to disappear. Or preparing to restart the operation somewhere else. Either way, this storage unit contains evidence that could put both her and Carter in prison for decades. Real evidence, not copies that can be dismissed as fabricated. We spent the afternoon planning another covert operation. This time we brought Detective Riley into the loop, though unofficially. I can't authorize you to break into that storage unit, she told us over coffee. But if evidence of criminal activity happened to be discovered there by concerned citizens, and if those citizens immediately contacted law enforcement, I would have to investigate. Understood. And if that investigation happened to coincide with a weekend when certain defense attorneys were out of town and couldn't interfere with the process, that would just be an unfortunate coincidence. Saturday evening, Tony and I drove to the storage facility in Garland. The place was deserted except for a single security guard who was more interested in his television than monitoring the grounds. Emily's unit was in the back row, away from the main office. Tony made quick work of the lock while I kept watch. Inside, we found exactly what Tony had predicted. Dozens of boxes containing financial records, photographs, video files, and correspondence. But we also found something else. Detailed plans for expanding the blackmail operation to Houston, Austin, and San Antonio. She wasn't planning to disappear, I realized. She was planning to franchise this thing. Look at this, Tony said, holding up a notebook filled with Emily's handwriting. She's been documenting everything, names, dates, amounts paid, personal information about sufferers. This is like a how-to manual for blackmail. I photographed every page while Tony copied computer files. But the most damaging evidence was a series of video recordings Emily had made of herself, apparently as insurance against Carter and other conspirators. In these videos, Emily calmly explained the entire operation, how they identified potential sufferers, how they lured people into compromising situations, how they used the recorded material to extract payments, and most importantly, how they dealt with sufferers who refused to pay or threatened to go to the police. We usually start with financial pressure, Emily said in one recording. Leak information to their employers, their spouses, their business partners. If that doesn't work, Carter and Jake handle the physical intimidation. Most people get the message pretty quickly. Physical intimidation, Tony repeated. That's attack and conspiracy. We were so focused on documenting evidence that we almost missed the sound of cars pulling into the storage facility parking lot. Company, Tony whispered, peering through the unit's metal door. 3 vehicles had arrived. Carter's BMW, Jake's pickup truck, and a car I didn't recognize. 6 men got out, all carrying flashlights and what appeared to be weapons. They know we're here, I said. Back exit? I looked around the storage unit. No windows, no rear door, just a single entrance that was now blocked by armed men. We're trapped. Tony pulled out his phone and called Detective Riley's direct number. Sarah, we're at the storage facility and we've got problems. Carter Wells and 5 other men just showed up and they're armed. We need backup immediately. Through the thin metal walls, we could hear the men spreading out, checking units systematically. They're going to find us in about 2 minutes, I said. Then we make sure the evidence survives, even if we don't. Tony connected his phone to the storage unit's Wi-Fi network and began uploading files to a secure server. Meanwhile, I used my phone to start a live video stream, documenting everything we'd found. If something happens to us, I said to the camera, this storage unit contains evidence of a massive blackmail operation run by Emily Granger and Carter Wells. They've been extorting money from politicians and business leaders for years. Footsteps stopped outside our unit. "I know you're in there," Carter's voice called out. "Come out now and maybe we can work something out." Tony finished his upload and nodded to me. We had successfully preserved the evidence, no matter what happened next. "What do you want, Carter?" I called back. "I want you to stop screwing with my business. I want you to delete whatever you just copied. And I want you to convince your cop friend to back off. And if I don't, then you're going to have an accident. Both of you." I looked at Tony, who was checking his service weapon. "How long until backup arrives?" 10 minutes, if we're lucky." "We don't have 10 minutes. The storage unit door suddenly rolled up, revealing Carter and two other men pointing firearms at us. "Phones on the ground, now!" We complied, placing our devices on the concrete floor. "Jake, destroy those phones. Tommy, grab all the boxes and load them in the truck." "This isn't going to work, Carter," I said. "Too many people know about this location." "Maybe, but without evidence, they can't prove anything. And without witnesses, there's no case." That's when we heard the sirens. Carter's face went pale. "You called the cops?" "We called them 20 minutes ago," Tony lied smoothly. "They've been listening to everything." The sirens were getting louder, multiple vehicles approaching fast. "Move!" Carter shouted to his men. "Leave everything and go!" They ran for their vehicles, but it was too late. Police cars surrounded the storage facility, trapping Carter's crew inside the perimeter. Detective Riley's voice echoed through a bullhorn. "This is Dallas Police. Drop your weapons and put your hands in the air." What followed was 15 minutes of chaos as Carter and his men tried to negotiate their way out of the situation. But with illegal weapons, threats against civilians, and a storage unit full of evidence, they had no leverage. By midnight, Carter Wells, Jake Morrison, and 4 other men were in custody. The storage unit had been secured as a crime scene, and Emily Granger was being arrested at her hotel based on the evidence we'd documented. "This time the charges are going to stick," Detective Riley assured me as we gave our statements. "We've got them on blackmail, conspiracy, attack, weapons charges, and about a dozen other felonies. What about the sufferers who recanted their statements? With Emily's own recorded confessions and the financial evidence you found, we don't need their cooperation anymore. This case is solid." Sunday morning, I sat in my kitchen reading news coverage of the arrests while Max ate breakfast. The Dallas Morning News headline read, "Massive blackmail ring targeting local politicians exposed." "Dad, does this mean Mom is really going to jail?" Max asked. "Yes, buddy, for a long time." "Are you sad about that?" I thought about the question carefully. Was I sad that the woman I'd married had turned out to be someone completely different? Yes. Was I sad that my son would grow up without his mother? Absolutely. But was I sad that Emily would finally face consequences for her actions? Not even a little bit. "I'm sad that things turned out this way," I told Max, "but I'm not sad that you're safe now." "Are the bad people going to come back?" "No, Max. The bad people are going away for a very long time." As I watched my son finish his cereal and start planning his day, I realized that we were finally free. Free from Emily's lies and manipulation. Free from Carter's threats and intimidation. Free to build a normal life together. But I also knew that the real work was just beginning. Max would need therapy to process everything that had happened. I would need to rebuild my trust in people and relationships. We would both need time to heal from the trauma of discovering that someone we loved was capable of such terrible things. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Tony's voice was excited. "Will, you're not going to believe this. 3 more sufferers came forward overnight, including a federal judge and a congressman. The FBI is taking over the case, and they're talking about RICO charges." "RICO?" "Racketeering. This thing was bigger than we thought, with connections to organized crime in other states. Emily and Carter weren't just running a local blackmail operation. They were part of a national network." I looked at Max, who was now playing with his tablet, completely absorbed in a science game. He had no idea that his mother was about to become the centerpiece of a federal criminal investigation that would make headlines across the country. And he didn't need to know. Not yet, anyway. For now, it was enough that we were safe, that the bad people were going away, that we could start rebuilding our lives without looking over our shoulders. But, as I would soon discover, Emily Granger had one last surprise waiting for me. And this one would test everything I thought I knew about justice, revenge, and the price of victory. 3 weeks later, just as I was beginning to believe our nightmare was over, Emily made bail. Her new lawyer, apparently hired by some mysterious benefactor with very deep pockets, had convinced a federal judge that Emily was a low-flight risk who deserved to await trial at home rather than in jail. Home turned out to be a luxury apartment in downtown Dallas, paid for by the same anonymous source who had hired her legal team. "This stinks," Tony said when he called with the news. "Nobody spends that kind of money on legal fees unless they're trying to protect something bigger." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Emily knows where the bodies are buried. Someone wants to make sure she stays quiet, and they're willing to pay whatever it takes to keep her comfortable." That evening, Emily called me from her new apartment. "Will, we need to meet. There are things you don't understand about this situation." "I understand plenty. You're a criminal who's going to prison." "I'm a criminal who knows enough secrets to bring down half the government of Texas. Do you really think they're going to let me go to trial?" "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that this blackmail operation goes much higher than you realize. We weren't just targeting local politicians, Will. We were working for people who make local politicians look like kindergarten students." Despite my better judgment, I agreed to meet Emily at a neutral location, a coffee shop in downtown Dallas with plenty of witnesses and security cameras. She looked different, thinner, older, with dark circles under her eyes that suggested she wasn't sleeping well. But her voice was as manipulative as ever. "You think you won, don't you?" she said, settling into the chair across from me. "I think justice is being served." "Justice?" Emily laughed bitterly. "Well, you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. The Meridian Society wasn't some amateur blackmail scheme. It was a recruitment and control operation run by people who make the mafia look like Boy Scouts." "I don't believe you." "Then explain how I made bail on federal racketeering charges. Explain who hired the most expensive criminal defense team in Texas. Explain why 3 of the key witnesses against me have suddenly developed memory problems." She had a point. Emily's legal situation had seemed hopeless 3 weeks ago, but now she was sitting in a coffee shop instead of a jail cell. "What do you want, Emily?" "I want you to understand that this isn't over. The people I was working for don't like loose ends, and right now, you and Max are very loose ends." "Are you threatening my son?" "I'm trying to protect him. These people don't care about collateral damage, Will. If they decide you're a problem, they'll eliminate the problem. Then testify against them. Help the FBI build their case." Emily shook her head. "You still don't get it. The FBI case is going nowhere. Half the evidence will be ruled inadmissible. Key witnesses will recant or disappear. The whole thing will fall apart, and I'll walk away with a slap on the wrist." "And Carter?" "Carter's expendable. He'll take the fall for the local operation while the real players disappear into the shadows." I studied Emily's face, trying to determine if she was telling the truth or just trying to manipulate me one more time. "Assuming I believe you, what exactly are you proposing?" "Take Max and leave Dallas, tonight. I'll give you new identities, money, everything you need to disappear." "In exchange for what?" "In exchange for your silence. Stop talking to reporters. Stop cooperating with law enforcement. Let this whole thing fade away." "And if I refuse?" Emily's expression hardened. "Then you'll find out just how dangerous these people really are." I stood up to leave. "Emily, I don't know if you're lying or telling the truth. But either way, I'm not running. If these mysterious puppet masters want to come after me, they're welcome to try. Will, please. I know I destroyed our marriage and traumatized our son, but I'm trying to save your lives. You're trying to save yourself, just like always." I walked out of the coffee shop, but Emily's warnings stayed with me. That night, I upgraded my home security system and made sure Max understood the importance of staying close to trusted adults. 2 days later, Tony called with disturbing news. "Will, we've got problems. 3 of the FBI's key witnesses have recanted their testimony. They're now claiming they were coerced into making false statements." "How is that possible?" "Money, threats, or both. The federal case is falling apart." "What about all the evidence we found?" "Defense attorneys are claiming it was obtained illegally and should be excluded from trial. Without witness testimony to authenticate the documents, the prosecution's case is getting weaker by the day." That afternoon, Detective Riley called with more bad news. "Will, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the local charges against Emily are probably going to be dropped. The DA says the federal case takes precedence, but if the federal case collapses, there won't be enough evidence left to prosecute at the state level." "So, Emily just walks away from all of this? Unless something changes dramatically, yes." I hung up the phone and realized that Emily had been telling the truth. Someone with serious power and influence was protecting her, and they were systematically dismantling the case against her. But I wasn't ready to give up yet. That evening, I called a meeting with Tony and Detective Riley at my house. Max was spending the night with his grandparents, so we could speak freely. Emily's going to walk, I said bluntly. The federal case is collapsing, the local charges are being dropped, and she'll be free to restart her operation somewhere else. That's the way it looks, Detective Riley agreed. So we need to make sure she doesn't get the chance. Tony raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that if the legal system can't handle this, maybe it's time for some extra-legal justice. Will, I can't be part of anything illegal, Detective Riley said quickly. I'm not talking about anything illegal. I'm talking about using Emily's own methods against her. I pulled out my laptop and showed them the files we'd copied from the storage unit. Emily documented everything. Names, dates, financial records, personal secrets. She's got enough dirt on powerful people to destroy careers and marriages across multiple states. So what if that information accidentally became public? What if every sufferer, every co-conspirator, every person Emily ever blackmailed suddenly found out that their secrets were no longer secret? Tony smiled grimly. You want to release everything? I want to make sure that even if Emily escapes legal consequences, she can never hurt anyone again. Her sufferers will know she can't blackmail them anymore. Her co-conspirators will know she's a liability, and the mysterious puppet masters will realize she's more dangerous to them as a free woman than as a prisoner. That's actually brilliant, Detective Riley said. If you release everything publicly, Emily becomes worthless as an asset and dangerous as a loose end. Exactly. Her own people will have to eliminate her as a threat. We spent the next 3 hours organizing Emily's files into a comprehensive database. Financial records, photographs, video files, correspondence, and detailed notes about dozens of sufferers and co-conspirators. Then I created a website and uploaded everything. Not to some dark corner of the internet, but to a professional-looking site with search functions, cross-references, and detailed explanations of Emily's blackmail operation. I called it the Meridian Files, a complete record of political blackmail in Texas. By midnight, the site was live, and I had sent anonymous links to every major news organization in the state. By 6 a.m. the next morning, the story was on the front page of every newspaper in Texas. By noon, 3 sufferers had committed self-harm and a dozen others had resigned from public office. By evening, the FBI had reopened their investigation based on the new evidence, and Emily's mysterious legal team had withdrawn from her case. But the real payoff came at 11 p.m., when Emily called me from what sounded like a car. You destroyed everything, she said, her voice shaking with rage and fear. I gave your sufferers their freedom back. How does that feel? You don't understand what you've done. These people are going to end me now. Then you should probably run. Will, please. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm still Max's mother. Don't let them homicide me. Emily, you made your choices. You chose to blackmail innocent people. You chose to traumatize our son. You chose to threaten my family. Now live with the consequences. They're going to end Max, too, just to tie up loose ends. No, they're not. Because Max doesn't know anything, and ending him would only draw more attention. But you're a walking liability now. Every secret you know is public, which means you're worthless as an asset and dangerous as a witness. Will, I hung up the phone. 3 days later, Emily's body was found in a warehouse in Houston. The official cause of end was listed as self-harm, though the circumstances suggested otherwise. Carter Wells died in jail 2 weeks later, apparently the sufferer of an attack by other inmates. Jake Morrison and the other conspirators suddenly developed cooperative attitudes and began providing detailed testimony about the blackmail operation in exchange for reduced sentences. Within 6 months, the entire network had been exposed and dismantled. Dozens of arrests were made across multiple states. The FBI recovered millions of dollars in blackmail payments, and the political landscape of Texas was permanently altered as corrupt officials were exposed and removed from office. I never told Max exactly what happened to his mother. When he asked, I simply explained that she had been involved with very bad people who hurt her because of the choices she made. Is that why you taught me to always tell the truth? He asked one day. That's one of the reasons, buddy. When you lie and hurt people, eventually those lies catch up with you. And then what happens? I thought about Emily's final phone call, about the fear in her voice, about the choice she had made to destroy other people's lives for money and power. Then you have to face the consequences of your choices, I told him. And sometimes those consequences are worse than anything a court could do to you. Max nodded solemnly and went back to his homework. That night, as I tucked him into bed, he asked me one more question. Dad, are we safe now? I looked at my son, this beautiful, innocent child who had been through more trauma than any 7-year-old should have to endure, and realized that we were finally, truly free. Yes, Max, we're safe now. The bad people are gone, and they're never coming back. Promise? I promise. And I meant it. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or laws or police investigations. Sometimes justice comes from giving evil people exactly what they deserve. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting bad people destroy each other. And sometimes the only way to protect your family is to make sure your enemies can never hurt anyone again. Emily Granger had spent years destroying other people's lives for profit. In the end, I simply gave her sufferers the tools they needed to return the favor.